Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 201 based on novel. So let's start. Junior brother, they don't look happy. Did they realize that we don't know how to create the divine fire to ignite the sun? The black tiger god asked in a soft voice. Shut up, senior brother. Qin Mu maintained a stiff smile and spoke through gritted teeth. Just maintain your smile and act as if we can create the suns. The black tiger god did as told, then spoke through the gaps of his teeth. This is the first time we activated spirit energy mutual shift bridge, so we don't even know if it had really connected with the sacrificial altar in Great Ruins. If it didn't succeed, would they count the two debts together and beat us to death? Shut up, senior brother. Qin Mu almost couldn't hold the smile on his face. Now that spirit energy mutual shift bridge is set up, can we enter Great Ruins from here? If something goes wrong when we cross the bridge, we might be ground into pieces and come out as a pile of minced meat on the other end, the black tiger god said softly. Cold wind blew through the silent surroundings. In Great Ruins, the sky was about to turn dark. Stone giants were walking through a forest with raised huge stone hammers to smash the ground. They were leveling the land. Along the journey, towering trees uprooted themselves and actually walked like humans. They opened up a path and planted themselves back on both sides of the road, forming two rows. After the stone giants paved the way, thousands of women went through the road. They were dressed in clothing of all colors that made them look like beautiful flowers. They were chit-chatting while squarish stone slabs floated through the sky and automatically landed under their feet. Behind them, tree giants were using wooden hammers to secure the stone slabs, interlocking them regularly and leveling the road. Behind the tree giants, Heavenly Works Hall Master led numerous divine arts practitioners of his hall to imprint runes. Every slab was gained rune markings, which would make the road more durable. The road wouldn't fall out even when chariots and huge beasts traveled on it. Using stone slab to pave the road made it much more convenient to repair them in the future. They just had to take out any faulty piece and replace it with a new one. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Xiong Xiu walked side by side. They were searching for stone statues and moving them to the side of the road. It was even better when they found village, since they would move them and their people closer to become towns in the future. Before they moved any stone statue, they offered incense, which was very important. It was what Qin Mu had told Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, so the speed of paving the road was slightly slower than what Qin Mu had predicted. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Xiong Xiu, the true Heaven Palace Master, had been busy for quite a long time. They had paved the road all the way to the territory of Great Ruins by then, and in just another month's time, they would reach Border Dragon City. When that time came, they would already be close to Eternal Peace Empire. Qin Mu knew many people in West Earth, and was friends with all the influential families. Paving a road to Middle-earth was a huge project, but all of the influential families had supported this idea and sent quite a number of divine arts practitioners to assist. Let's take a break. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor took a look at the sky and said loudly, "The darkness is about to arrive, so quickly go to the stone statues. Don't move around at night." Everyone hurriedly did as told and started fires to cook their meals. The girls were chatting excitedly about the men of Eternal Peace. They took glances at the divine arts practitioners of Heavenly Works Hall and laughed softly. The divine arts practitioners blushed and didn't dare to speak. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gazed at the setting sun. Even though Qin Mu had thrown all the responsibility and dirty work to him while he went out to play, he didn't have any complaint. When conquering West Earth, he had also thrown all the dirty work to Qin Mu, and the youth had done a very good job. At that moment, the sky shook, and a beam of black light descended from the sky. It spun down frantically and hit the ground. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's face changed slightly, and he looked toward the place where the black light had landed. Boom! It hit the ground, and the land trembled. Vibrations reached even their feet. It felt like some terrifying monster was about to break out from the earth. Imperial Preceptor. Two beams of light shot out from the eyes of Heavenly Works Hall Master, as he looked toward the abnormal change. His expression changed drastically, and he shouted loudly, "There's a huge change in the meteorological phenomenon. The ground is surging into big mountains, which is probably the work of a demon." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor got up and said solemnly, "You guys stay here. I will go and take a look." The darkness surged around, but Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked through it until he came to where the black light had fallen. Its energy was exhausted, and a beam of blue light rushed into the sky from underground, piercing through space. The blue light formed a passage of flowing light. What had released the blue light was a huge sacrificial altar that looked like a mountain. At this moment, all of the runes on it were lighting up one after another. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor examined the sacrificial altar that had suddenly risen up. He muttered to himself irresolutely for a moment before walking up and entering the blue light. In Supreme Emperor Heaven, the smiles of Qin Mu and the Black Tiger God were icy. In the sky, the smiles of True God Pang Yu, God Sang Yi, and the other gods were also no different. Everyone had gone still for quite a period of time. Right then, from the light in the center of the sacrificial altar, a lanky figure of a middle-aged man walked out. He looked around in bewilderment, then his gaze landed on Qin Mu. "So it's Cult Master Qin. What remarkable thing have you done this time? What is this place?" Qin Mu exhaled deeply. Seeing Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was like seeing a family member. The man had actually come to Supreme Emperor Heaven from Great Ruins, and tested the usability of Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. He was a timely assistant. Otherwise, it was hard to say how long they would have stayed frozen. Qin Mu, however, wouldn't have dared to personally enter the bridge to see if it was safe. Both he and the Black Tiger God were worried that they might be shredded to death if there was an error in the design. Luckily, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor came. Their main concern was that they had destroyed the suns, and if Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge was unusable, the Divine Arts practitioners and gods of Supreme Emperor Heaven would probably cripple them if not kill them outright. Luckily, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor came. The sun in the sky, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor raised his head at the sun that was missing a side and hurriedly looked away. He composed himself before asking, "Cult Master, what is this place?" "These Tao friends are." "Just in time, Imperial Preceptor," Qin Mu said loudly. "Everyone, let me introduce you. This is the saint that appears once every 500 years, Imperial Preceptor of Eternal Peace Empire. Truth be told, the divine bridges of Eternal Peace's people have been broken, and Imperial Preceptor is the first person to cultivate to godhood. He is also the leader of Eternal Peace's reform. Imperial Preceptor, this is Supreme Emperor Heaven, the first heaven of the 33 heavens, and the person in the sky in True God Pang Yu. True God Pang Yu and the rest of the gods couldn't help being moved. They immediately landed and greeted Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. True God Pang Yu said with a smile, "So it's the saint that appears once every 500 years. It's an honor to meet you. Truth be told, I had once heard about the legend of the saint that appears once every 500 years, but thought it was some weird talk. Never did I expect to meet the true person." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor returned his greeting and said humbly, "Tao brother is too polite. I'm merely a small person from the countryside, who has never seen the big world before. The so-called saint that appears once every 500 years, is merely the flattering of my small country." Pan Yu laughed loudly and shook his head. Imperial Preceptor is mistaken. If your world is a countryside, then our Supreme Emperor Heaven is even worse off. Founding Emperor Era, High Emperor Era, all of them were located right where you are. The reason Supreme Emperor Heaven has fought the devils bitterly for 20,000 years is also only to protect your world. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's heart trembled violently, and Qin Mu's expression went dazed. They hadn't expected True God Pan Yu to say something like that. There was too much information in his words, and the two men needed some time to digest it. This spirit energy mutual shift bridge established contact between the two worlds, which is a good thing to our Supreme Emperor Heaven. If we can't hold on anymore, we shall preserve our full strength to head to the celestial heavens. Pan Yu bowed to Qin Mu and said sincerely, no matter if little friend Qin can forge another 2 sons or not, my Supreme Emperor Heaven will remember this great benevolence of yours. Qin Mu immediately returned the greeting. True God is polite. This is what I needed to do, so there's no need to remember it. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned his head around and looked at the incomparably complicated spirit energy mutual shift bridge and sacrificial altar. He sighed in admiration. Spirit energy mutual shift, it's indeed something cult master made. I saw a huge change in the meteorological phenomenon and the ground flooding to the sacrificial altar. A light bridge that was like 2 funnels connected, and I wondered which devil had broken through to eternal peace to create havoc. When I came to the sacrificial altar and took a look, I saw truly impressive craftsmanship. The algebra used was extraordinary, taking use of the exchange of spirit energy and the mutual shift of spirit energy. I was suspicious, so I came to have a look. It showed up that it was really Cult Master who could have such a marvelous thought. Qin Mu was greatly satisfied and said humbly, Imperial Preceptor praises me too much. This is mostly thanks to senior brother Black Tiger. He introduced Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor to all of the gods and said meaningfully, Imperial Preceptor, Saint Woodcutter, is also here in Supreme Emperor Heaven. Saint Woodcutter. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's heart trembled in agitation. The reason he had started the reform was because of the phrase from Heavenly Saint cult, for the everyday use of common people. The path of the saint was what he was chasing his entire life. And to become a saint, he had to first establish his virtue, his merit, and his ideas in writing. That was what he had done. He didn't think that the legendary existence would be in such a place, so how could he not be agitated? He wanted to meet this senior that had brought him to the path of reform. Qin Mu rarely saw him being this perturbed and smiled. Saint Woodcutter is not here now, but fighting the devils with the 24 gods. Imperial Preceptor, you have just come and don't understand Supreme Emperor Heaven. Once I tell you everything, you will know how wonderful is this spirit energy mutual shift bridge. He then added meaningfully, the inheritance of Supreme Emperor Heaven's paths and skills had never been broken. What? Disbelief filled Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor face, and he cried out, the inheritance of the paths and skills has never broken. You mean their techniques, skills, and divine arts were all preserved completely? Impossible. Look at that sun in the sky. Such a standard of algebra is thousands of miles inferior to ours. It's even worse than what the scholars of Imperial College could do. The Black Tiger god pouted while thinking, this saint that appears once every 500 years, is also a fellow who hasn't cultivated his frame of mind as well. Just a piece of small information is enough to agitate him so much. His expression has changed drastically, making it hard for him to control his emotions. The so-called saint doesn't live up to his reputation. Feeling slightly awkward, Qin Mu muttered, it is indeed a little unbearable to look at. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sneered and said, how is it just unbearable? All I want to do is to bring a knife up to even the sun. If the scholars of Imperial College forged such a rough artifact, I'd definitely expel them and send them back to recultivate. In the surroundings, all of the gods filled with embarrassment. They looked at one another speechlessly. With helplessness in his voice, Qin Mu said, "Imperial Preceptor, lower your voice. Even though the algebra of Supreme Emperor Heaven has downgraded, their inheritance of paths has never been broken. With my abilities, among the divine arts practitioners of the same realm, I can only rank in the top 10. Cult Master is being humble, right?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor asked suspiciously. Qin Mu gave it some thought and said honestly, "I was indeed a little humble. However, Supreme Emperor Heaven does have numerous divine arts practitioners that have the corporeal body of a young true god. Their speed is faster than mine, their strength is greater than mine, their reactions, power of the divine arts and divine eyes, and even their techniques surpass those of Eternal Peace." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor exhaled deeply and composed himself. The reason why he was so agitated was mainly because there was a huge gap in the inheritance of Eternal Peace's paths, skills, and divine arts. This huge gap had appeared 20,000 years ago. At that time, the paths, skills and divine arts had become incomparably rough, and couldn't form a system at all. Hall of Human Emperors, Tao Sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and Heavenly Saint Cult were imparting what they knew in all directions, but due to limitations of such an action, the paths, skills and divine art they imparted weren't complete. Tao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery had suffered destruction in the calamity, while Hall of Human Emperors had only one successor every generation. Heavenly Saint Cult was established after the incident and only then started to impart its paths. Little Jade Capital was also constructed at that time, but since it didn't meddle in worldly affairs, there was no ancestor walking the world to impart their path. With time, other sects had slowly formed, and their paths, skills, and divine arts could be said to be established from no foundation at all. Afterward, there were fights between sects, between righteous and evil, which threw the world of Eternal Peace into chaos. The sects fought each other with no end, and the three big sacred grounds stopped interfering. They kept to themselves, making the interactions between paths, skills, and divine arts their biggest concern. The chaos lasted until Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor assisted Emperor Yangfeng with the reform. Only then did things change. The fights between the sects and righteous versus evil were turned into the battles between the sects and Eternal Peace Empire's benefits. When Qin Mu became Heavenly Devil Cult Master, he led his sacred ground in support of Emperor Yangfeng wholeheartedly and crushed Tao Sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, and all of the other rebellious forces. Only then did the fighting stop for real. With all the techniques united, Eternal Peace Empire's paths, skills, and divine arts could take a huge step forward. Qin Mu had then spread the space algebra model for all the divine arts practitioners to have a chance to become gods and break free from the limitation of the human body. Yet even so, Eternal Peace Empire's foundation was weak, and the cultivation system was incomplete. Those who could cultivate to God realm were in the minority, and there weren't many strong practitioners. The construction of Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge by Qin Mu allowed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor to see the arrival of a new generation. Cult Master has done a huge service to the people of Supreme Emperor Heaven, and a huge service to the people of Eternal Peace. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor suddenly bowed to the floor and said sincerely to Qin Mu, "I thank you on behalf of all living beings." Qin Mu hurriedly returned his greeting. "I don't dare. The devils are attacking Supreme Emperor Heaven, and it won't be able to withstand them for much longer. Once it is invaded, the devils will go for great ruins and eternal peace. If we helped these people, they could last for a bit longer." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor got up and said solemnly, "After I return, I will definitely send a memorial to the Emperor to ask him to assist Supreme Emperor Heaven." Qin Mu smiled at him. "In that case, This matter shall be handled by Imperial Preceptor and true God Pang Yu. You guys can set the regulations for the people to come and go through Supreme Emperor Heaven. You should also decide how Eternal Peace can support Supreme Emperor Heaven, and how to exchange pointers regarding paths, skills and divine arts. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was silent for a moment before saying, "You're going to wash your hands off this too." Qin Mu stretched his back and said with a smile, "Brother Tiger, and I haven't rested in days, so we need to sleep for a time. I also need to go out for training. This kind of matter is better settled by Imperial Preceptor." "That's right, about the sun, see if you can help them with that as well." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor could only nod before shifting his gaze to true God Pang Yu. "Dao brother, even though there's no complete cultivation system in Eternal Peace, the reform has accomplished a lot in the paths, skills, and divine arts, and Supreme Emperor Heaven will certainly find things to learn as well. With the interaction between the two worlds, numerous experts will definitely be born." True God Pang Yu instructed a few gods to protect the spirit energy mutual shift bridge while smiling. "Imperial Preceptor, let's go to Li City to discuss this in more detail." "Please." Qin Mu saw them off and let out a sigh of relief. "Senior Brother Tiger, let's go rest now." The two of them returned to the tower and lay down on the ground to sleep like logs. When Qin Mu woke up, the sky outside was bright. As he washed up, the Black Tiger God also woke up. "What spirit pills does Senior Brother eat?" "Let me prepare your meal," the youth said. "Spirit pills." The Black Tiger God licked his paws to clean his face and shook his head. "I don't eat that, so you don't have to trouble yourself. As a god, I just cultivate daily without any need for food. Anything that can fill the stomach is fine." Qin Mu was stunned. He thought of the dragon Qilin, and couldn't help becoming sorrowful again. After the two of them had breakfast, Sang Hua, Yu He and the rest came in search of them, and Yu He said, "Cult Master, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, has already gone back, and he said that the Divine Arts Practitioner Army and Gods of Eternal Peace Empire will be coming over in a few days' time." Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief. "Is there any news of Heavenly Teacher?" Yu He shook her head. "Now that Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge has been constructed, my Master True God Pang Yu gave the order for normal people to withdraw out of Supreme Emperor Heaven. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor will prepare soldiers and flying ships to receive them in great ruins. We came to find Cult Master, because we plan to infiltrate the Devil's territories to help the people there migrate." Qin Mu turned his head to look at Black Tiger God and probed, "Senior Brother, helping the people in the Devil's territory migrate isn't considered creating trouble, right?" The Black Tiger God shook his head. "We even shot the sun down, so who cares about barging into the Devil's territory? It cannot even be considered a small matter. With me around, you guys can be at ease. I assure you that nothing will go wrong." Qin Mu was delighted. The purpose of his visit was to gain experience, to take a look at the strength of divine arts practitioners in the boundless worlds and learn from their strong points. He wanted to grow so that he could fight First Ancestor Human Emperor. The devil experts in Supreme Emperor Heaven were numerous, and they were the best opponents for him to test his skills. On top of that, with Black Tiger God around, there was no need for them to worry about not being able to run away after meeting a devil god. The Black Tiger God's speed was extremely fast, so even if he was faced with 3 or 5 devil gods, he could still leave easily. To top it, with the Black Tiger God's last sentence, even if they created any trouble, he would be the one to take on all of the responsibility. Great Cult Master Qin would have nothing to do with it. Sang Hua and Yu He also relaxed. With the Black Tiger God with them, their journey wouldn't be dangerous at all. Everyone walked down the city tower. Yu He was courageous and careful, more mature than Sang Hua, so she was the first to suggest, "Senior Tiger, since we're going to the devil's territory, it's best if Senior wouldn't release your aura. Otherwise, devil gods will show up to stop us. It'd be best if you pretended to be a normal divine arts practitioner. The reason why the gods of our Supreme Emperor Heaven can't come is because devil gods are extremely sensitive to their presence. The Black Tiger God retracted his aura in and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I won't give the game away and lure the devil gods over. It's your training, so I will only observe from the side and not interfere." Their footsteps were very fast, so that divine arts practitioners that had slightly lower cultivation couldn't follow. Since he wanted to infiltrate the devil's territory, the people she brought were all elites and experts in the army. They had all experienced life and death struggles before. When they were near their destination, the sky gradually turned dark as traces of devil chi floated to and fro the forest. The place looked like it was shrouded by grey fog. They could see but not far. One divine arts practitioner thought to use a flame divine art to light up the way, but he was instantly stopped by Shu Yao. This is the territory of the devils, so unless you are in a life and death situation, no one should use divine arts that give off light. Otherwise, we will be exposed. Remember, when we encounter an enemy, we have to get rid of them instantly and end the battle. We cannot let the fight continue and risk attracting more enemies. Everyone hurriedly acknowledged his words. Shu Yao's breadth of mind ain't bad, Qin Mu praised, then turned to Sang Hua. Have you went to God Suppression Pagoda? Sang Hua shook her head, her long braids bouncing in front of her chest. I haven't had the time. There were simply too many things that needed to be done these few days, so I couldn't get away. There has been no activity from the devils recently, and this terrifies me. Also, Heavenly Teacher had brought away 24 gods, and there has been no news of them. I can't have a bad feeling about it. Qin Mu frowned slightly. Saint Woodcutter had left with the 24 gods, but there was still no news of any huge battle. It was indeed strange. Be careful. We've already entered the territory of the devils. Dingyun, scout the path with your primordial spirit. Once he gave her commands, a divine arts practitioner sat down in a lotus position, and his primordial spirit was projected out. Another divine arts practitioner then came forward to carry him on his back. Most of them were divine arts practitioners of 7 stars realm, and could project their primordial spirit. However, without experiencing the reform of primordial spirit in Eternal Peace Empire, their primordial spirits were not too strong enough, and couldn't fly too far. However, they could still be used to scout the way. Everyone hurried on their way. After a moment, Dingyun's primordial spirit flew back and said, 200 miles southwest from here there's a town. It has about 2,000 people enslaved by the devils, but I have no idea what they are constructing. There are also some villages nearby with old and young, women and children. However, there are 6 watchtowers on the way, and they are very high. I didn't dare to examine them in detail since I was afraid the devil divine arts practitioners would detect my primordial spirit. How far apart are the pagodas? He asked. Dingyun blushed and murmured, my calculations aren't good. I never learned before. He frowned. The devils in the watchtower should be divine arts practitioners of 6 directions realm, or 7 stars realm. They are extremely alert, so if we alarm them and news spread, it won't be a few scattered soldiers that will be welcoming us. Strong practitioners of celestial being realm, or even life and death realm would show up. Dingyun shook his head. The other places also have watchtowers, and they are numerous as well. Shu Yao pondered over it and said, in that case, we can only sneak over secretly, and get rid of the devils in the watchtowers. If even one devil notices us in advance, we must all retreat. Qin Mu thought about it, then asked, whose vital qi is the most durable, the strongest? Everyone looked at him. Their mouths opened, but they didn't say anything. Yu He and Shu Yao hesitated for a moment, but kept quiet as well. If one's vital qi is strong enough, they can execute a sword pellet from 100 miles away. In such a way, we can destroy the devils in the watchtowers without giving them a chance to react. Everyone's mouth stayed wide open, but they didn't speak. Qin Mu was bewildered. When he thought to speak again though, Sang Hua, who was more straightforward than others, said, "Brother cult master that threshes the grains, aside from Senior Tiger, among all of the divine arts practitioners, isn't your vital qi the most durable and strongest?" Everyone hurriedly nodded. "We are all impressed that cult master could slay 4 strong devil practitioners in the Battle of Li City, so if you continue to be humble, it will be fake," Shu Yao said helplessly. Qin Mu scratched his head, only then remembering in what ways he surpassed Yu He and Shu Yao. Besides sword skill, divine arts and primordial spirit, the other was his vital qi cultivation. "All right, I'll clean the watchtower. Follow closely behind me." Qin Mu got up and tapped the heart of his brows. Primordial spirit projection. His primordial spirit flashed and vanished. What a strong primordial spirit! Everyone, including Yu He, jumped in shock. Qin Mu's primordial spirit had been cultivated into substance, and was no inferior to the primordial spirit of divine arts practitioners of celestial being realm. It was truly powerful. "Even though I'm the number 1 among Supreme Emperor Heaven's 7 stars realm, and have reached the standard of a young true god in many fields, my primordial spirit is still inferior to his," the woman thought. Sang Hua went over to pick up Qin Mu up so they could hurry on their way, but she saw him begin to run forward. His speed gradually increased, leaving her dumbfounded. The black tiger god strode after Qin Mu. "Stop staring. This is spirit control spell, a spell by my lord. Quickly, follow." Everyone hurried to do as told. When they caught up to Qin Mu, his primordial spirit suddenly floated back and returned to his body. He smacked his Dao Tai sack, and a sword pellet flew out. It spun and suddenly rushed through the air at an extremely fast speed. Qin Mu suddenly increased his pace and rushed forward furiously. With a boom, he actually surpassed the speed of sound, no longer keeping a low profile. Yu He and the rest of the divine arts practitioners frowned. Qin Mu could catch the enemies off guard, but the sound would definitely travel to the other watchtowers. When Dingyun had scouted the way, other than the 6 watchtowers that they had to pass, there were also other watchtowers that were not on their path. Qin Mu had made a loud noise, which would alarm the other pagodas and reveal their group, giving them no other choice than to retreat. Yu He gritted her teeth. "Let's follow." Everyone hurriedly increased their speed and ran furiously, raising their speed to the extreme. Explosions rang out as all of their speeds surpassed the speed of sound. However, the people in the group were not equal in strength. Yu He, Shu Yao, and Sang Hua were the fastest, even faster than Qin Mu. The 3 of them caught up to him and looked forward. The sword pellet had already come to the first watchtower. That sword pellet was still over 30 yards away, but countless swords had flown out and rushed into the watchtower. Over a dozen of the others suddenly pointed downwards and went close to the ground. In the meantime, the rest merged back into the sword pellet. It didn't pause for a moment though, continuing to rush forward. Qin Mu was also doing the same, and he saw the second watchtower moments later. There were a couple devils drinking merrily under it while 2 others looked around from the top. The dozen swords that were flying close to the ground flew over, and the devils that were drinking didn't even have time to react. Their heads flew off, and the swords rushed upwards with blood light, colliding with the sword pellet that flew out from the watchtower. Whoosh! Qin Mu flew over, and furious wind swept past the watchtower. He rushed to the 3rd watchtower. Yu He, Shu Yao, and Sang Yi followed after him and came to the 3rd pagoda. Qin Mu suddenly stopped, but his sword pellet had already rushed toward the fourth watchtower. Qin Mu's feet were not perpendicular nor were they spread out. With his right hand forming a sword technique, his vital qi streamed through his body, and he staggered around like a drunk. His sword fingers stabbed into nothing from time to time while keeping with the sword techniques. The sword pellet crashed into the watchtowers, and countless flying swords shuttled in all directions like flying fish. They killed all of the devil divine arts practitioners standing guard. In some time, the pellet broke through the fourth, fifth, and sixth watchtowers. The other divine arts practitioners hurried over to the four people. When they stopped, Dingyun projected his primordial spirit and chased after Qin Mu's sword pellet. He saw that after it had broken through the sixth watchtower, it separated, and the 8,000 swords split into two groups, before forming two slightly smaller sword pellet, and flying in the opposite directions. Dingyun was shocked, but his primordial spirit chased after one of the sword pellets. He saw that it was following a set pattern, and moving in an arc at a terrifying speed. All of the devils in the watchtowers were slain without any time to react. When the sword pellet had come to the last watcher, Dingyun finally heard the boom that was caused by them moving faster than the speed of sound. But it wasn't loud anymore. The devil divine arts practitioner stretched his head out to look, but behind him, the sword pellet flew into the pagoda and burst forth with sword light, drowning him out. Dingyun immediately called back his primordial spirit. When he returned to his corporeal body, he saw the sword pellet flying back. There was another one whooshing back as well. The two sword pellets clinked in front of Qin Mu, and became a slightly bigger sword pellet before landing gently in his hands. Fortunately, I was able to accomplish the mission. Qin Mu raised his head and smiled. Everyone gasped for air. They had suddenly stopped and had yet to look around the. Xu Yao looked at Dingyun, who nodded. In a radius of 150 miles, any watchtowers that could have heard the rumblings have all been destroyed by Cultmaster. Places that our father couldn't have heard the noise from here. 150 miles. His expression filled with disbelief. Qin Mu had only mentioned 100 miles just now, but he had actually destroyed all the watchtowers in a 150-mile radius. His vital qi cultivation was too strong. Looks like he was indeed being humble, she thought secretly to herself. Let's go over quickly. Cultmaster, you've controlled so many swords, do you need to rest? Xu Yao asked. Qin Mu shook his head. No worries, my vital qi is still abundant. Xu Yao jumped in shock and exclaimed to himself that Qin Mu was a pervert. Everyone went past the destroyed watchtowers in a hurry. Soon, they weren't far from the small town, which Dingyun had mentioned earlier. Everyone covered their traces and looked forward, their hearts trembling. In front of them, the place could no longer be called a small town. Instead, it was a giant altar that was no smaller than the sacrificial altar that Saint Woodcutter had used to descend. Thousands of strong humans were constructing it under the supervision of devil soldiers. The sacrificial altar had already been half constructed, and numerous devil divine arts practitioners were carrying buckets of fresh blood to imprint rune markings. Hasn't the devils already opened the barrier of Supreme Emperor Heaven? The world barrier between Supreme Emperor Heaven and the devil world can no longer stop the descent of the devils. So why are they still constructing a sacrificial altar? Qin Mu was puzzled. He then said in a low voice, unless the god or devil they are planning to summon is not someone from the devil world. Could it be? He thought of Zhehuali's origin, and unease filled his heart. Zhehuali was Luo Wushuang's disciple, who came from the so-called true celestial heavens. There's a strong practitioner of celestial being realm here. Everyone look away, don't let him notice you. Xu Yao hurriedly said. Everyone did as told. Beside the sacrificial altar, a strong devil practitioner, had a primordial spirit of over 30 yards standing behind him. He was tall and strong, and his primordial spirit seemed to sense something, for it looked around. However, it didn't notice anything abnormal. Qin Mu took out a mirror and used it to reflect the surroundings. The devils here aren't numerous. Besides that celestial being expert, the others should not be hard to deal with. At this moment, he saw a figure walking out from inside of the sacrificial altar, and his expression instantly changed. Fu Riluo. Qin Mu's palm was shaking as Fu Riluo, in the mirror, walked out of the sacrificial altar, and raised his head to look straight at him. "Run," Qin Mu croaked in a hoarse voice. Fu Riluo, who was in the mirror, took a stride forward and walked out of the mirror. His body became bigger and bigger, like a nightmare descending. "Run quickly," Qin Mu shouted out sternly. This video will end here.